Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It is 7:18. I'm actually like 2 minutes early. Oh my gosh. I shouldn't do that to people. Anyway, it's supposed to be 7:20. We are in the book of Leviticus, which is the third book of Torah, and we are in chapter 20. I believe there are 27 chapters, so we're in chapter 20. And here we go. The Lord spoke to Moses. Say to the Israelites, any Israelite or foreigner living in the land who gives any of his children to Moloch must be put to death. The people of the country are to stone him. I will turn against that man and cut him off from his people, because he gave his offspring to Moloch, defiling my sanctuary and profaning my holy name. But if the people of the country look the other way when that man gives away his children to Moloch, and do not put him to death, then I will turn against that man and his family and cut off from their people both him and all who follow him and prostitute themselves with Moloch. Whoever turns to mediums or spiritists and prostitutes himself with them, I will turn against that person and cut him off from his people. Consecrate yourselves and be holy, for I am Yahweh your God. Keep my statutes and do them. I am Yahweh, who sets you apart. If anyone curses his father or mother, he must be put to death. He has cursed his father or mother. He who has cursed his father and mother, his blood is on his own hands. If a man commits adultery with a married woman, if he commits adultery with his neighbor's wife, both the adulterer and the adulteress must be put to death. If a man sleeps with his father's wife, he has shamed his father. Both of them must be put to death. Their blood is on their own hands. If a man sleeps with his daughter-in-law, both of them must be put to death. They have acted perversely. Their blood is on their own hands. If a man sleeps with a man as with a woman, they both have committed a detestable thing. They must be put to death. Their blood is on their own hands. If a man marries a woman and her mother, it is depraved. Both he and they must be burned with fire, so there will be no depravity among you. If a man has sexual intercourse with an animal, he must be put to death. You are to kill the animal. If a woman comes near any animal and mates with it, you are to kill the woman and the animal. They must be put to death. Their own blood is on them. If a man marries his sister, whether his father's daughter or his mother's daughter, and they have sexual relations, it is a disgrace. He has had sexual intercourse with his sister. He will bear his punishment. If a man sleeps with a menstruating woman and has sexual intercourse with her, he has exposed the source of her flow, and she has uncovered the source of her flow. Both of them must be cut off from their people. You must not have sexual intercourse with your mother's sister or your father's sister, for it is exposing one's own blood relative. Both people will bear their punishment. If a man sleeps with his aunt, he has shamed his uncle. They will bear their guilt and die childless. If a man marries his brother's wife, it is impurity. He has shamed his brother, they will be childless. You are to keep all my statutes and all my ordinances and do them, so the land where I am bringing you will live and not vomit you out. You must follow the statutes of the nations I am driving. You must not follow the statutes of the nations I am driving out before you, for they did all these things and I abhorred them. And I promised you, you will inherit their land, since I will give it to you as to possess, a land flowing with milk and honey. I am Yahweh your God, who set you apart from the peoples. Therefore you must distinguish the clean animal from the unclean one, and the unclean bird from the clean one. Do not become contaminated by any land animal, bird, or whatever crawls on the ground. I have set these apart as unclean for you. You are to be holy to me, because I, Yahweh, am holy, and have set you apart from the nations to be mine. A man or a woman who is a medium or a spiritist must be put to death. They are to be stoned. Their blood is on their hand. Well, not like a jolly good morning. Good morning, Deb, and good morning, Stephanie. So chapter 20 is pretty severe and strong language. And I think one of the interesting parts that kept popping out when I read this was I'll just see if I can find it again. It would say over and over again, the blood is on their own hands. Start at verse 9, I think you see it for the first time. He has cursed his father and mother. His blood is on his own hands. And then a little bit later, in verse 11, their blood is on their own hands. And then 12, they've acted perversely. Their blood is on their own hands. 13, they must be put to death. Their blood is on their own hands. So over and over and over again, I don't know how many times he said it, but he's said it a lot in this passage. And what is he saying? Why is he saying that? That's interesting. I think because that, like, the punishment's so severe, he's asking the community to stone them or burn them at the stake or something, kind of horrible things. And it'd be hard to do, right? It's just someone you knew, and you would say that's really hard to do, right? Like, no one wants to be the executor. No one wants to be that person. And that's why God in this whole passage is saying, it's not you, it's them. So as a student, as a teacher, I remember one of the first couple times I had to give somebody an F. It wasn't much to do like in a test or an assignment. I didn't really have a problem with that. But when the final grade came down, and I'd look at the grades, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have to fail the student. They spent money, they show up to class, and I'm going to have to give them an F. And then go, oh, this is so terrible. What am I going to do? And I remember those first several years, I was emailing students, please turn your work in. I don't want to fail you. Please turn your work in. Like, I'm like really begging people. It never worked, by the way. They rarely did their work. I had a student just 3 years ago who came to every single class, every single lecture. She did not, it was an 8 o'clock in the morning class. She did not miss one single lecture, and she only did one assignment. At the end of the year, we had a final presentation. She did that assignment, and that was it. The only assignment she did for an entire semester, and I had to fail her. It was horrible, horrible, horrible to fail somebody. But I think finally I got over this because it's really not my responsibility, right? I did what I had to do, but their F was theirs. They earned it, or whatever, right? They earned their F. And I think here in the scripture it says, their blood is on their own hands. It's not you. You're not doing it to them. They did it to themselves because they chose to break these rules. They chose to go against God's command. And I think it's not reassuring necessarily, but I think it lets us know, I don't know, maybe it's kind of reassuring, that there's consequences to sin. I think that's the big idea there. And it's their consequences. Maybe you have to be, in this case, they had to mete out the punishment, but it's their consequence. And it just also speaks to us. I think it speaks to us as modern believers, right? I'm doing a study with a group of people on the book, on the verse of John 3:16. And one of the things that I noticed yesterday in my studies was that when Jesus is speaking to Nicodemus, he's really my professor said he was candid with him. He was very direct. And I think what we've lost a little bit in our Christian circle is that we aren't very direct at all, right? So we're worried about how people are going to receive us or treat us or talk about us, or we're worried about them leaving the faith or whatever. So we're not, if we see actions, oftentimes we don't say anything. Well, like, that's, God will deal with it, or God will figure it out or whatever, right? But I think that in this story, or in this scripture, it's like the community was part of the solution, right? Because they talked, they exposed, they confronted, and they actually had to mete out the punishment. So I just want to encourage you not to, when you see someone and you think there's a problem, go to them in love, right? It's very different now. I mean, we're obviously not going to stone anyone. And as you read, right, as you read the rest of Scripture, you realize people weren't being stoned, right? I think they stoned one person for gathering firewood on the Shabbat. But you have whole cities filled with, you just lots of stuff happening now. So there was the rules, and then they really didn't they really didn't live out these rules very well. So I think that's kind of the big idea, is that it's not our responsibility. We're not responsible for how other people live, but we are responsible to confront in love and in care. Like, I can't do that. No, it's not your, that's God's, that's what the community's for, right? That's the community say, hey, I've noticed this. I've noticed this. I've seen this. Tell me more, right? Um, and the blood is on them. They've chosen it, but as a community, what can you do to restore them? Because we're in the restoration business, right? That's what we are as believers. That's making me think of that verse in Jude. Do you guys think of that one? If I can find the book of Jude, I think it's a tricky book to find. It's so small. Just keep flipping to the end. Here's what it makes me think of. In the book of Jude, have mercy on those who doubt. Save others by snatching them from the fire. Remember, for some of these people, we're supposed to burn them at the stake. Have mercy on others, but with fear, hating even the garment defiled by flesh. Have mercy on them. Save them by snatching them from the fire. That's what we're supposed to do today. Not stone them and cast them aside and gossip about them and stigmatize them and burn them at the stake. No, we're snatching people from the fire and having mercy on those, but with fear. Like, just want to encourage you as you see people in your life and your community of faith. It's okay to call people and say, hey man, here's what I'm seeing in your life. But with mercy, with grace, snatching them from the fire because you love them. And so I see Leviticus 20, and then I see the end of Jude, and those are tied together for us as believers. So God bless you today, and I'll see you tomorrow, 7:20. Bye-bye.